Thank you very much, Ambassador. Good evening. All protocols have been observed, so I won't go into that. But I really just want to say how grateful we are to be with you this evening and to be in Los Angeles. We know when we think about economies, and we know the economy of California, one of the largest economies in the world, with a larger economy than Kenya. So for us, we know we're in the right place to start talking about business and what we can do together with you. And a lot has been said about Kenya. But to echo what Mr. King'ori said, there are reasons why, when we talk about Kenya being the 7th top investment destination for business in emerging countries, it's because of what Kenya is being seen by other countries as a developing hub for oil and gas, of manufacturing, financial hub, ICT, and transport. Those are some of the key sectors that are really making Kenya give a bright picture of Kenya. But tonight, I have two distinguished business executives, and they're very well chosen for a simple reason. One represents a very big Kenyan company, which I hope many of you have invested in, Safaricom. You have? Thank you. And the other one is a foreign investor. He's the chairman of Toyota East Africa. That is Dennis Awori. And we know how big Toyota is in Kenya. And I really just, before I even say a lot more about what we are doing as a business community in Kenya, to really ask them to just introduce themselves. And I want them to specifically talk on two things in 5 minutes, then I'll be back. One, why are they investing in Kenya? Why is Safaricom one of the largest companies, not only in Kenya, but in the region, as a Kenyan company? And why is Toyota increasing its investments in Kenya? What do they see in Kenya? How is it doing business in Kenya? And what do they tell the diaspora? And how can they work together with the diaspora? So let me start with you, Bob. Just come and speak for 5 minutes. And I'll be back.
Good evening. In Kenya, we dress up usually, but because we're in California, we've all decided, and now you people, you've let us down badly. Safaricom, ICT company, as you said, many of you are investors. Let me just give you a few statistics which you might or might not be familiar with. We're announcing our results next week, so I need to be careful what I say, but we have over 20 million customers. Many people around the world know us as the M-Pesa company, and that means quite a lot, actually. It means that we recognize as a country for being a bit of a trailblazer. 80% of the mobile money transmitted around the world is done in East Africa, and that's largely led by M-Pesa. Last week, we brought the platform home, which didn't mean much to many people, but it meant a lot to me. And it was a program which was about 2 years, and we moved it from Germany into Kenya. How difficult was that? My friend, the cabinet secretary, was probably losing some sleep because at any one point it has about 30 billion shillings sitting on that platform. That's 30 billion shillings of 22 million customers' money. And if we'd messed it up, it meant 30 billion shillings could have disappeared. Why was I proud of that achievement? Because the project manager was a young lady called Emma. Emma is 33 years old. And I tell that story because of a few things. One of the comments that someone said earlier today is that Kenyan students in the diaspora are outshining everybody else. And that's a surprise. It's not a surprise, actually. It really is not a surprise. Emma, at 33 years old, managed the program which spanned 5 countries, 2 years, 30 billion shillings at stake, people who didn't speak the same language, the Chinese, the Indians, the Germans, and she landed it 7 minutes ahead of schedule after 2 years. M-Pesa continues to be a big success. It handles about 8 million transactions per day, and it moves about 4 billion shillings a month, which is roughly about 20 to 30% of the country's GDP. But M-Pesa is not the only ICT success stories. You know, we have others. We have Bridge International, which is a company started in Kenya, opening a new school in the slums every 2.1 days. And the curriculum is entirely driven using ICT. There's no cash, there's no chalk and talk. We have M-Kopa. M-Kopa, again, developed in Kenya, and now spreading into Tanzania, into Uganda, into India, and even into other parts of Asia. And M-Kopa brings use of renewable energy at an affordable price to people who are not on the grid. We all know about Ushahidi. Ushahidi now being used around the world, including in Washington. And we have BRIC, which was developed by young Juliana Rotich and her team. Kenya has become something of a hub for ICT. We have Google, who are headquartered in Africa, in Nairobi. We have IBM, who've recently opened their labs. We have Microsoft. We have GE. And it's been a destination for a number of significant leaders. You know, we've had Jeffrey Immelt visit us in the 4 years that I've been in Kenya. He's visited us at least 3 times. We've had Eric Schmidt from Google. So it's not a myth that we are the Silicon Savannah of Africa. If Safaricom, those of you who are, how many Safaricom shareholders are in the room? Shame on the rest of you. If you'd bought your shares at 5 shillings when we listed, I just checked just now, it closed at 17.3 shillings on Friday. You tell me a single company that has shown that growth in that period of time. And what does that mean? It means that if Safaricom was a country, it would be the 36th largest country in Africa. There's much that's said of our neighbor in Rwanda, and it seems to be the darling. But Rwanda's GDP is 7.5 billion shillings. Safaricom's market cap on Friday night was 7.3 billion shillings. As I come to kind of the end of my 5 minutes, or probably slightly less, I want to say that it's not a myth that doing business in Kenya is actually good business. Now, yes, we do have problems. Other speakers have talked about the insecurity in the country, and I know there's something from afar you'd look at. But let me just remind you that Boko Haram has been operating in Nigeria for the past 6 years. Nigeria has nonetheless shown a GDP growth rate in excess of 6% over that period. Yes, we do have problems, and I tell you, when you live in the country, you do feel it. I was in Chiromo twice, actually, during the week after Garissa, and to see the grief on the faces of the parents was heartrending, and even now I still find it very difficult. However, having said that, foreign investors are still pouring into Kenya. Today, of the listed part of the Safaricom, the 25% which is listed, more than 50% of that is currently sitting in foreign hands. Foreign demand for my shares outstrips supply on a daily basis by 4 to 1. So investors are seeing beyond that. It is not to belittle the insecurity that we have in the country, but we had it in Charlie Hebdo, we had it in Denmark, we had it in Boston. Terrorism is something which affects us all. It is an international problem, and investors are not shying away from that. And then finally, we couldn't leave this conversation without talking about corruption. Corruption is a reality in the country. I sit on the UN Global Compact board, and I chair the steering group on the working group on corruption. And so I take a very firm position on it. But you'd also see that the CEO of the country is also taking a very firm position on it, more so than we've ever seen, and more so than we're seeing in many, many other countries. And therefore, you know, it's no longer just words, you know, there are actions that follows it. So I would say companies like Toyota, companies like Safaricom, Unilever, Coca-Cola, all those companies, East Africa Brewery, all those companies are taking a very firm position, and we are seeing corruption receding. You know, we're not going to hide from it. We know that it's there, but we are making a determined effort, both as government and as the private sector, in addressing that. You know, I scribbled a few other notes as I was sitting there. The American system teaching you in the diaspora to be hardworking and honest. Can I just say, it's not the American system that's teaching. I've worked in many countries. I've worked in Japan, in South Africa, in South America, and in the UK. I have never found a more hardworking people than the Kenyans. Honesty sometimes is a little shaky. My earlier comments about corruption notwithstanding, but I've never found a more hardworking people. And then finally, the issue of returning professionals. You know, I join your plea to government. I mean, it's ridiculous. We've seen, you know, Transcendry isn't here because he's arriving tomorrow for the conference, but, you know, Gashau has said to me before that as he walked around one of his works, he found welders from Scotland. I wonder why the hell, because you only have to go to Outer Ring Road and you can see that we can weld, or Kenyans can weld. But we just need to formalize the training, we need to formalize the qualifications, and I know that government is working on that. But, you know, I, for one, as a company, I tell you, I really embrace the diaspora when you come back. And I find that when you do come back, that worldview that you've developed in the time you've been overseas is a huge asset to my company. And so you would find, you know, open arms waiting for you when you come back. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.